Good morning, fellas, and welcome back to Me Plays Games, the show where it's 77 degrees and sunny every day. When it comes to the Rubik's Cube, you might learn how to solve the regular 3x3 puzzle, and then decide you want to move on to a new challenge. What happens when you add another layer to an already infamously difficult puzzle? Who's held the world record for the 4x4 cube, and how do they go about solving it? That's what we'll find out today. Be sure to subscribe to Me Plays Games for more speedrunning and speed cubing videos. Alright, let's get started. The Rubik's Cube was released worldwide in 1980, and it was a hit. I got in on the fun at the ripe old age of -22. Tons of people were buying it and trying to solve it. The first person to theorize the concept of a Rubik's Cube with an extra layer was David Singmaster, who also made many other contributions to cubing in its early days. He's the person who came up with the notation that's used for algorithms today, as well as one of the first solutions to be published. He was the first person to write a newspaper article about the cube outside of Hungary, and he even ran his own company selling puzzles and books. So Singmaster invented the 4x4 cube, right? Nope. It was actually Hungarian inventor Peter Sebesteny who created the 4x4 cube, after reading Singmaster's work and a friend of his suggesting he make it. It proved to be a challenge to find a way to build an internal mechanism that worked, but by February of 1981 he had applied for a patent for the cube. He was originally going to call it the Sebesteny Cube, but the name was changed at the last minute to the Rubik's Revenge, in order to appeal to fans of the original Rubik's Cube. Marketing. You know, now that I think about it, that name sounds like a Rubik's Cube movie that people would look back on and think, huh, somebody really made a movie about an evil square terrorizing a city and we just let them. I'd make a movie poster here, but I suck at using Photoshop, so I'll just leave that one up to your imagination. Anyway, by the time the 1990s rolled around, the Rubik's Revenge was no longer being produced. Fortunately, in 1998, Chen-Sen Lee filed a new patent for a 4x4 cube, which was eventually released by a company called Eastsheen in 2003. Another company called Meffert started producing what they called the Master Cube in 2000, which used essentially the same mechanism as the original Rubik's Revenge. Later that year, the original Rubik's Revenge began being produced and sold again as well. Since then, countless other brands have produced 4x4 cubes that turn faster and more smoothly, with magnets being added relatively recently as well for more accurate turning. You know, every once in a while people will ask me if magnetic cubes are allowed in competitions. Yeah, they are. If they were banned, I don't think companies would bother making them. Let's go over the types of pieces and how they differ from the 3x3 Rubik's Cube. If you're familiar with this stuff, feel free to skip this chapter. The 4x4 cube has the same types of pieces as the 3x3, centers, edges, and corners. The corners work the same way as on a 3x3, but the centers and edges require a different approach to solve them. There are 24 center pieces on a 4x4, compared to 6 on a 3x3. Unlike the original Rubik's Cube, none of the centers are fixed in place, so in order to figure out where each set of centerpieces goes, you have to memorize your cube's color scheme. On most cubes, for example, the white and yellow faces are opposite each other, so if you put blue opposite yellow instead as an example, you won't be able to solve the cube without redoing some of the centers. There are also 24 edge pieces, twice as many as on the 3x3. That means that each edge has a corresponding piece with the same two colors, so solvers will match up the 12 pairs in the middle of their solve. The World Cube Association, or WCA for short, or Worldwide Cubicle Association for long, recognizes the 2003 World Rubik's Games Championship to be the first official competition for the 4x4 cube. Japanese cuber Masayuki Akimoto set the first officially recognized world record, with a time of 1 minute 20.16 seconds, and he also went on to win the event. Unfortunately, the first 7 records don't have any video available, so we'll just go through them quickly. Lightning round. Oh no, that says lighting round in my script, not lightning. Oops. American solver Chris Hardwick broke Akimoto's time at US Nationals in 2004, with a time of 1 minute 12.85 seconds. The next month was the European Rubik's Games Championship, where the record was broken twice. First by Frederick Badie, then by Lars Vandenberg. Frank Morris kicked off 2005 with a new record of 1 minute 8.12 seconds, before Badie took the record back 3 months later. Another 3 months passed, and in July, Yuki Hiyashi lowered the record once again to 1 minute 380 milliseconds. Before we move on, let's talk about how cubers go about solving the 4x4, because the methods that exist for it are going to come up soon. There are a few common ones for solving the 4x4, and no, taking off the stickers isn't one of them. The main ones the cubers do use all follow the same general idea. First, you solve the centers and pair up the edges. That turns the cube into a big 3x3, and it can be solved using any method you use on that cube, although some methods are easier to transfer to bigger cubes than others. The difference between the three main methods is which centers and edges you do in what order. Reduction is the method most commonly taught to beginners. In this method, you solve all the centers and move on to pair up all the edges. Please enjoy this filler sentence I'm recording later so you can see what the solved edges look like. In the Yao method, you start by solving two centers on opposite faces. Then you match up three pairs of edges for one of those two colors to give you a head start on your cross. For those of you who didn't watch my video on the original Rubik's Cube, the cross is the first step in the most common 3x3 method, CFOP. To make a cross, you solve all four edges on one face. Solving three cross edges early on in a 4x4 solve takes fewer moves, and it also still gives you room to work with for the upcoming steps. Then you move on to the other four centers, then the remaining 8 edges. There's also the Hoya method, where you start by solving two opposite centers like Yao, but this time the color you solve your cross on shouldn't be one of them. Then you solve two more centers, one of which should be your cross color, followed by your 4 cross edges, the last 2 centers, then the last 8 edges. Keep in mind that all 3 methods end with a regular 3x3 solve. Regardless of which method you use, a problem you might run into during a solve is a parity error. Because of the way the pieces work, there's not really any way of knowing if they're oriented or permuted correctly until you get to the 3x3 stage. The first kind of parity is OLL parity. If you recall from my previous video about the 3x3, the first step of CFOP is called OLL, short for Orient Last Layer, where you make the whole top face one color. On a 3x3, every possible case you can get for OLL has an even number of edges flipped the right way, either 0, 2, or all 4. On 4x4, it's possible for an odd number of edge pairs to be oriented correctly, in which case you throw your cube in the garbage. In which case you need to do a special algorithm to fix this problem. There's a 50% chance of this happening on any given solve. OLL parity algorithms are long, so it's very difficult to get a good time on a solve where you have to use one. You can also get PLL parity, where the pieces are permuted in ways that aren't possible on a 3x3. The most common way to fix this is by setting your cube on fire, by doing a short 6-move algorithm to swap 2 edge pairs. Once again, there's a 50% chance of this parity happening. It's worth noting that all 3 of the methods I outlined can easily be applied to every cube bigger than a 4x4 as well. The first world record with existing video footage is Chris Hardwick's second and final 4x4 single record, a 55.38 second time on August 13th, 2005. As you can see in this solve, Hardwick is rotating the cube frequently, because the bigger cubes get, the harder it is to find the pieces you're looking for. Hardwick is also using the reduction method as opposed to the more advanced ones. Why, you ask? Well, because they didn't exist. The reason reduction isn't used at the top level of 4x4 solving today is because of what we see here in Hardwick's solve, as well as, well, you know, pretty much every other 4x4 solve during this time. It's much harder to find the pieces you're working on quickly, and that's a problem that the other methods seek to fix. Yao wasn't invented until 2009, and Hoya came about in 2012. So we're about 4 years away from these better methods. Let's see how much further the record can go with reduction. The next record would be set on November 5th, 2005 at the Rubik's World Championship. Once again, it was Yuki Hayashi who set the record, with a time of 54.13 seconds. Unfortunately, there's no video of the next 4 records, but Michael Fung, Matthias Kudi, Dan Cohen, and Keisuke Hiraya all set records between 2006 and August 2008. Culminating in a 45.15 second time by Hiraya. On August 23rd though, Erik Akkersdijk got this time at Dutch Masters. $43.72 seconds. You might know about Akkersdijk's legendary 7.08 second solve in the 3x3 event, which he set just over a month before taking down the 4x4 record as well. That 3x3 solve single-handedly shaved nearly 2 full seconds off the record. Wait, can I say single-handedly when there's also actually a one-handed event? Double-handedly? Whatever. This 4x4 solve isn't as ridiculous of a jump, but an impressive time nonetheless, especially since we're still a little ways away from the Yao method being proposed, and hardware still had a long way to go at this point as well. He broke his own record 2 weeks later at Brussels Summer Open with a 41.31, but there's no video of that one. That also unfortunately goes for the next record, a 41.16 by Yumu Tabuchi on October 4th at the Japan Open, as well as Akkersdijk taking the record back in January of the next year with a 40.05. 3 months later at the German Open, Akkersdijk broke his own record one last time, bringing it down to 39.83 seconds, the first ever sub-40 solve. It'd be about another 3 months and change till the next world record, but on August 1st, Shuhei Omura lowered the record to 39.28 seconds at Japan Open. Then in October, Dan Cohen broke the record for the first time in over a year, with a 36.46 second time at the World Championship in Germany, but again there's no video of that solve. Oh well. In my 3x3 speed solving video, we looked at Australian cuber Feliks Zemdegs and his streak of dominance in the 3x3 event. But he was also breaking records left and right in other events, 4x4 being one of them. The world record was broken 5 times in 2010, and Zemdegs was responsible for 4 of them. By the end of the year, he had lowered the record from 36.46 to 31.9 seconds nearly single-handedly. Man, there I go with that word again. The only time someone else broke the record was on July 11th, 2010, the day after Zemdegs' first record in the event, by a Chinese cuber named Haishu Zhang. He got a time of 35.40, just barely edging out Zemdegs' first record of 35.55. After Zhang's record, Zemdegs went on to lower it twice at the Asian Championship in October, first with a 34.72, then a 34.41 later that same day. Then at Melbourne Cube Day, he knocked off another 2.5 seconds, with a 31.97 as his final time of the day. The obligatory Feliks Zemdegs chapter is now over. Sort of. At this point, another cuber threw his hat into the ring. His name is Sebastian Weyer. 4x4 is his main event, so we'll be seeing a lot of him moving forward in this video. Besides that, he's also part of one of my personal favorite moments in cubing history. At the Red Bull Rubik's Cube World Cup in 2019, he went head-to-head with his twin brother Philip. On the third solve of the round, Philip beat Sebastian by a margin of just 1 millisecond. Philip is also an incredible cuber in his own right, despite not having broken any world records. As of writing this script, he's the reigning world champion in the 3x3 event, with a 6.74 second average in the final round. But that's completely off topic. I just wanted to talk about Philip Weyer in a video somewhere. He's not part of the Rivalry of Sorts in this chapter. On April 30th, 2011, Sebastian attended the Hamburg Open in Germany and got this solve. (31.66 seconds, which turned out to be the first of many single records he would set in the 4x4 event. In fact, the record has been broken 20 times since the start of 2011. Zemdegs and Weyer account for 17 of those. A month later, Zemdegs would break Weyer's record at Kubaru Open with a 31.05. Over the summer, he broke his record 2 more times, first with a 30.88 at Melbourne Winter Open. Oops, I forgot 6th grade science. Over the winter, he broke his own record 2 more times, first with a 30.88 at Melbourne Winter Open, then a 30.28 at Australian Nationals, and then another cuber you might remember from my last video entered the ring. Mats Valk is also a 2-time world record holder in the 3x3 event, including a 5.55 second time in 2013, which wound up becoming the second longest standing 3x3 single record since the WCA was founded. But at Dutch Nationals in December 2011, Valk got his first 4x4 single record at 30.02 seconds. The year came to a close and Valk was on top, but who would be the first person to break the 30-second barrier? Well, it'd be Valk himself. 26.77, destroying the previous record by over 3 seconds. The first sub-30 time and 2 of the 3 world records not set by Weyer or Zemdegs in the last 11 years belong to Valk. What followed was 2 years of Sebastian and Feliks trading the record back and forth. Zemdegs broke Valk's record by just 2 centiseconds at Australian Nationals in 2012. Then in February the next year, Weyer took the record with a 26.44 at Velbert Open. Zemdegs lowered the record by a full second 4 months later at Shepperton Winter, where the record stood for the rest of the year. On the first weekend of 2014 though, Weyer got a 24.67 at Duisburg Winter. The next weekend, Zemdegs just barely beat that time out with a 24.66 at Lifestyle Season Summer. Weyer broke the record 2 more times in 2014, first with a 24.33 in April, then a 21.97 in August. That record wound up standing for a long time, becoming the first 4x4 single record to last more than a year since 2006. I'm leaving that in the video, 2006. By this point, we're only 2 seconds away from the first sub 20 time. Let's see who would be the first to break that barrier. After a year of the single record remaining dormant, Zemdegs got this solve. 21.54 seconds. Not quite sub 20 yet, but Zemdegs was back on top. This time was set on October 2nd, 2015. Once again, this record would also stand for over a year. 2016 came and went, and so did nearly half of 2019. Then Sebastian Weyer came back and did this. After nearly 3 years of the record being under 22 seconds, Weyer finally broke through with a 19-second time. Over the next 2 years, we would see the record come down 5 more times. A couple weeks later, it was Zemdegs' turn with the record again. Weyer was just keeping it warm for him apparently. Nice guy. That record of 19.36 seconds stood for 10 months, till Weyer took it back with an 18.84. The next month, Max Park got his first and only 4x4 single record so far. Park currently holds the 4x4 average record though, as well as the single and average records in 5x5, 6x6, and 7x7. I might go over the history of those world records too, but I think it makes sense to do them all in one video, since their solutions are essentially the same, and most people who do well in one event will do well in all 3. In 2019, Weyer brought the record down 2 more times, first with an 18.25, then with a 17.42. And that's where the record stands today. 4x4 is a really important puzzle in the grand scheme of things. It's the next logical step up when you learn how to solve the Rubik's Cube, and it's a popular event in competitions. Over a minute has been shaved off the first world record over the last 2 decades. There's definitely room for the record to improve though. Max Park's personal best at home is 14.37 seconds, the unofficial world record for this puzzle. Well, that'll do it for this video. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one. Good night fellas, sleep well.